Namaskar, friends. I am Sanjay Bhagwan Mansukhani from wonderdestiny.com. I am a teacher of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and Patanjali's work is absolutely phenomenal. Today, what we will discuss is the principle, is the tattva of ahamkara. Ahamkara as a tattva, as a principle, was defined by Kapila Muni. He gave it as one of the tattvas of his 25 tattvas of the theory of evolution of this creation. So what is ahamkara? Dear friends, ahamkara simply means that it is a combination of two words, aham and kara. Aham means me, I, the individual element, and kara means action, doership. So ahamkara is kind of a statement that I am the doer. So in Sankhya, in Kapila Muni's scheme of things, of the evolution, as he put it, that when the Purusha, that is the soul, comes close to Prakriti, comes close to what can be called as Mool Prakriti, primordial Prakriti, nascent Prakriti, unmanifest Prakriti. And this Prakriti, though is in balance, is in equilibrium, but when the Purusha comes close, then it leads to some trigger. It causes some motion, commotion, action inside Prakriti. And that balance of Prakriti, that equilibrium of Prakriti gets disturbed. When that equilibrium gets disturbed, the process of evolution of Prakriti starts. And the first thing which comes out is Mahat, as we had discussed earlier. Mahat means the Mahat Tattva, the great principle, the great Tattva. Mahat is the seed of the entire cosmos. Mahat is cosmic intelligence. This intelligence, at an individual level, is called Buddhi. And out of this individual presence of Buddhi, of intellect, we have the doership coming out. We have the ego coming out. We have the ahamkara coming out. So now Buddhi evolves, grows, develops into ahamkara. So initially what was, you can say, infinite in nature, because both Prakriti and Purusha were infinite, eternal entities. Out of these two infinite eternal entities, what comes out is Mahat, cosmic intelligence. So this has cosmic dimensions, but not infinite dimensions. It is huge, it is Virat, but it is not infinite. Out of this cosmic dimension of the mind, out of the cosmic intelligence, comes the individual intelligence, comes the Buddhi part of it. And from this individual intelligence, from this Buddhi, what comes is ahamkara. Now this ahamkara, this individualization, this birth of me, I and mine, this birth of doership cannot remain there unless and until it is able to build up an infrastructure around it by which it can actually act, by which it can actually do, by which it can influence the environment outside. So, dear friends, that is only possible when Ahankara is able to evolve further into build an infrastructure, build the paraphernalia by which it can work on the environment outside. It can understand what is in the environment outside. So what does Ahankara do now? Ahankara creates, evolves, produces, develops the mind, manas. This mind is the processing house. This mind is the analysis center of certain inputs which the Ahankara picks up from the outer environment. This mind is the center of action which the Ahankara wants to do in the world, in the environment outside. In order to do that, the Ahankara now creates the 5 Gyan Indriyas, the 5 senses of perception, the 5 senses of knowledge. And it also creates the 5 senses of action, the 5 Karma Indriyas. So now what does Ahankara bring in place? Ahankara brings in a setup of 5 doors, of 5 inlets, where knowledge from the environment outside, from the world outside, enters the system inside through these 5 doors of senses. In a human being, these 5 doors of senses are our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, and our skin. So once it gets to know what is there outside, it prepares a corresponding action by which to respond or react in the world, in the environment outside, based on the knowledge which it got from outside to inside. So we have a feedback mechanism, we have a loop, we have a device here, we have a mechanism here which takes in knowledge and gives out action. So this is a very important point to understand. It takes in knowledge, Gyan, and it gives out action, karma. And this is controlled by whom? The doer, the Ahankara, the ego. So if you understand this principle of working of the ego, the natural state in which the ego is constantly working, it can be used to the advantage of that individual. Whatever action you need to do outside, then all you need to do is create the corresponding thought, corresponding idea, corresponding concept inside. All you need to do is notice that thought, notice that idea, notice that concept inside. All you need to do is experience that thought, experience that idea, experience that concept inside. When you do that, you create a memory, you create a smriti. The memory, the smriti, means this particular experience has been recorded now in the chitta, in the storehouse of memory. It gets stored in the form of sanskaras. And these sanskaras do not remain dormant forever. These sanskaras are living entities. They become active at the right place, in the right time, whenever they want to be active. And once when they become active, then they turn into karma. They act out through the senses of karma, senses of action, through the karma indriyas. And when they start working out through the karma indriyas, they modify, they amend, they change the outer world, they change the outer environment. So, dear friends, what comes in as knowledge goes out as modifying action in the world outside. So, this principle, if you understand and apply, you can bring about a magical change, a magical transformation, a miraculous upliftment in your life, a miraculous empowerment in your life. Apart from this, the Ahankara also goes about creating the 5 Tanmatras. What are these Tanmatras? These Tanmatras are the subtle energies, subtle powers, subtle Shaktis which are present in the human body. And through the operation of these senses in the human body, what happens? They create the real world outside for us. They create the 5 gross elements with which we identify our existence. So what they do is, these 5 Tanmatras, these 5 powers, Shaktis, energies which operate at the subtle level, at the subatomic level, which help us to perceive the outer existence. They are namely sound, touch, form, taste and smell. Now these 5 Tanmatras create the 5 Mahabhutas outside. So what are these Mahabhutas outside? Number 1, sound creates Akasha, space. Touch creates air. Form creates Agni. Taste creates Jal, water. Smell creates earth, Prithvi. So now, because of the presence of these subtle energies of perception of the Tanmatras, we are able to see the outer world, the outer environment, the outer existence in the form of 5 basic gross elements of earth, water, fire, air and space or ether. And just because these energies are present in us, our sense organs use these energies to perceive. And just because these energies are present in us, the outer world takes form, takes shape, takes color, takes a presence. And then we live in this outer world of physical form. So, here we have seen that the Ahankara plays a major role. This Ahankara is actually the individualistic element of existence. This Ahankara comes out of the individual Buddhi, but this individual Buddhi is coming out of the cosmic Mahat, cosmic intelligence. So, in this creation, there is a cosmic presence, and in this creation, there is an individual presence. Now, why is there a need for the cosmic presence to break itself into individual presences? Because the cosmic can act only through the individual. And why does the individual presence need the cosmic? Because the individual can act and bring about the change in the cosmic level of existence only through the cosmic presence. So, dear friends, this is what we need to understand, that the cosmic and the individual are there for each other. The cosmic and the individual are coexisting. The cosmic works through the individual, the individual works through the cosmic. Both of them are there together. And a yogi, when he is born as a simple ordinary child, he already has an ahankara, he already has an individualized presence, he already has an ego. His world is his own individual world. He is perceiving it from his own individual mind. He is applying his own individual intellect to this world and its presence and taking his actions accordingly. And this is precisely what limits him. This is precisely what binds him. This is precisely what turns out to be the cause of his sorrow. Because he is an individualistic entity in a cosmic creation. And an individual cannot have access to the cosmos unless and until he is able to operate from the cosmic zone of existence. So an individual has to break through the barriers of individualism. A yogi is able to do that. He is able to break that barrier of individualism. He uses three primary techniques to break through that barrier of individualism. What are these three techniques, these three methods which a yogi uses? These three methods are very simple. The first one is called vairagya, detachment. When the individual starts detaching himself from all individual objects of this world, all individual human beings, all individual attachments, then he becomes free from the individual. Now he operates in the universal zone. He is attached to the universe, to the universal presence. So he is no longer selfish. He is no longer thinking about his own. He is no longer thinking about his individual existence, but he is thinking for everybody. He is thinking about universal brotherhood. He is thinking about universal love. He is thinking about universal existence as a community. His approach has become universal. And then as he grows further, as he keeps on practicing more vairagya, detachment, he becomes free from the universe also. He is now operating from the domain of the cosmos. So what is a cosmos? Many universes put together form a cosmos. A yogi now is free of the universe he was born in. He is free of all other universes around him. So he is now in an advanced stage free of the cosmos also. So once when he is free of the cosmos, then what is he looking at? What is he perceiving? What is he experiencing? He is experiencing himself as the three gunas. He is experiencing himself as the initial stage of Prakriti. He is experiencing himself as a Purusha, as a soul. And as he looks more and more towards the Purusha, towards the soul, this nascent stage of Prakriti starts disappearing. These three gunas of Rajas, Sattva and Tamas realize that they have no further role to play. Their job is done. It is time that they move out from a yogi's existence. So what do? They dissolve themselves and they go back into the mool stage of Prakriti, into the primordial stage of Prakriti, into the nascent stage of Prakriti. And now that yogi is free, liberated from Prakriti. That yogi has achieved Kevalya, moksha from Prakriti. He is a pure Purusha now, a pure soul now, independent forever. So, this whole process which I explained to you was happening out of detachment by the yogi, was happening out of renunciation, out of vairagya by the yogi. He started by forgetting, detaching, leaving the individual object, the individual person. And slowly he came to the universe and he left that universe also. Then he came to the cosmos. He was able to leave and detach himself, take vairagya from the cosmos also. And so on and so forth, till he reaches his pure nascent Swarup, his own stage of Purusha. The other method is concentration. When a yogi concentrates, when a yogi puts his mind at one place, that mind starts coming after some practice at one point. With further practice, when a yogi enters the stage of samadhi now, this one-pointedness of the mind also disappears. The mind disappears. So first the individual mind disappears. Then the yogi is now operating from the universal mind. When he continues his sadhana, his abhyas, his practice of bringing the mind to one point and making it disappear, then he finds the universal mind too, after sadhana, starts disappearing. Now he finds himself in the cosmic mind. And again with further abhyas, with further sadhana, he finds this cosmic mind too disappears. Now there is no mind. He is left only with pure Prakriti, Mool Prakriti, and a pure Purusha. So here he gets liberated. Here he gets into Kaivalya. Here he experiences absolute independence. And he is out from all this. The third method, as I told you, there are three methods which are practiced in yoga, which have been suggested by Patanjali. That is Ishvara Pranidhana. When he absorbs his mind completely into Ishvara, when he surrenders his mind completely to Ishvara, when he goes into Samarpan, Sharnagati of Ishvara, when he enters into a firm commitment with Ishvara, then his mind becomes one-pointed on Ishvara. And slowly, steadily, because Ishvara is not in Prakriti, and because his mind is focused on Ishvara, he gets pulled out of Prakriti by the sheer will, by the sheer strength of his concentration, of his surrender, of his samarpan to Ishvara. That Ishvara pulls him out, along with his individual mind, universal mind, cosmic mind, out of Prakriti. And that is when this individual becomes free, liberated, achieves moksha, achieves Kaivalya, achieves Nirvana, becomes the Purusha. So dear friends, Ahamkara is the starting point, but not the ending point. Ahamkara means you are a limited entity if you are operating out of Ahamkara. If you are operating out of the universal mind, then you are a universal entity. If you are operating out of the cosmic mind, then you are a cosmic entity. If you are operating out of the Purusha, the soul, then you are a soul entity. And when you are the soul entity, that time you are infinite, eternal, permanent, pure consciousness. And that is the real goal of yoga. So dear friends, with this I come to the end of my talk on Ahamkara. I am grateful to you for being here and listening to this talk. We have been doing this series of talks to make you aware about the truth of the Yoga Sutras, the truth of Sankhya, and how powerful it is and how you can put it to use to achieve permanent happiness for yourself, your family, your society, country and people of this world at large. Because when you are in the pure soul state, that is the state of permanent happiness. That is the state of bliss. That is the state of complete knowledge and power. And all of us together, if we understand this, then we can heal our planet. We can create a happy planet and we can gift our coming generations a happy planet. So let us learn about the Yoga Sutras, let us learn about the Sankhya Darshan, and let us create that permanent happiness for ourselves, our family, and the whole world at large. Thank you so much. God bless each one of you. See you tomorrow again on the same FB Live session. We will be covering another topic from the Sankhya Darshan tomorrow. Thank you so much. God bless each one of you. Thank you.